The quest for the ONE BURST BXR, it can be done. A couple things before the start of this video. There needs to be an introduction because there's still a lot of things to cover. In my greaves build, I said there are about 5 or 6 things that I want to cover with that base build. Strong things to add. So on the quest here, I want to show you some of those things I found along the way. Wrap it up in a single video, and if anything later on needs to be added, I'll do it. But there's still a lot to learn and try out. And after that, I'm going to get into the ONE BURST BXR. It all flows. And you know what? Only one character can pull off the ONE BURST BXR. Can you guess what that character is? With everything said though, and with some other things, even though a true ONE BURST can't happen, they're still very, very good and potent. We're going to talk about it all. And the best part, and it might be a relief to a lot of you, the way to ONE BURST with a BXR doesn't require you to really build craft at all. And it's actually a very viable loadout that I do encourage you to try. But it does have some requirements that need to be met for it to happen. And on top of that, there is a surefire way to get a ONE BURST. I'm going to go through all of it. That also has some requirements, but regardless, again, one way or another, still very, very strong. Lots of heavy damage coming out of the BXR. This setup and all these setups are just about having fun. We're at the end of the season, and this build has an objective, a goal. And by the way, I've been no joke, Perk and grieved over 100 times in the past 2 days. Tons of you saying that you're loving it, so that's glorious. The first thing I want to start with is that this base build that I talked about in the Greaves video can be used on any solar subclass. It's just that the Greaves are the easiest ones to pop off with. Gunslinger, Sunbreaker, Dawnblade, doesn't matter. So a quick refresh on the screen. The basic build, you need 4 things. 100 strength, thermoclastic blooming, taking charge, high energy fire. And by the way, if you're running taking charge, high energy fire in your basic build, and you're a Dawnblade, Sunbreaker, Gunslinger main, just throw on thermoclastic blooming. It's there. Melees happen all the time. Let's not act like they don't. But I want to reiterate the full build. I do suggest stacks on stacks and melee mod accelerators. So with all of this continuing, try this out with the Void surprise attack mod for sidearms. All of these sidearms get into that 0.2, 0.3 TTK range. You're usually stacking a damage buff with charge with light. Those charges with stacks on stacks converts to a 10 bullet magazine of a charge magazine. Things like swashbuckler sidearms are great, and since you get 10 stacks, it works well. Also kill clip sidearms. A big tip specifically if you're using a swashbuckler sidearm. Surprise attack is activated by readying or reloading a sidearm. So when you get that melee kill, that's how you get swashbuckler, good, but you still need to reload. So to get it going, just make sure 1 bullet's out of the sidearm, that way it can be reloaded, because with a Greaves build, or a throwing knife, whatever it is, but especially with Greaves, after you hit that shoulder charge, the tempered metal reload is going to help you ride along to get that thing reloaded and charged up. A 3-burst sidearm, like this Peace Bond with Swashbuckler, deals 58 per crit with Swashbuckler and charged with light, surprise attack, lots of quick damage. Something like a high impact sidearm, I have a lonesome kill clip. Swashbuckler is going to be better because it's instant, but since I have so many stacks of the charged magazine, the first kill is going to be a lot easier to get it going, but once I reload, I have the charged magazine and kill clip, it deals over 100 crit. That's a 2-shot, that's a melt. Again, Swashbuckler is instant to that over 100. It can work with any sidearm, but there are some that stand above the rest. Again, swashbuckler ones are really good, top tier. Let's take Rat King. Lots to digest here, the Vermin perk. Getting a kill, reloading, being invisible, then shoulder charging players out of nowhere while you're invisible. Then you reload it, or ready it, you have the charged magazine, and now 3 taps. And with this, again, you're getting kills, going invisible, and health, and more. There are 3 taps in the magazine if you have surprise attack with stacks on stacks. It's something to try, causes a lot of chaos. Next is a really strong one, the surprise attack Devil's Ruin. Oh my. Again, with the Greaves, just land the strike. If the sidearm is out, quick swap back to it. That way you load in the surprise attack rounds. Now the charged beam surprise attack deals 48 per crit, a potential 4 bullet kill for 192 damage, a 0.18 to 0.2 second melt. If that beam gets on you, good luck. It's pretty much over. Very good combination. And finally, Forerunner. Same deal, but for this one, the quick swap is going to be right back to it. It deals 93 to the head, a 1 head, 2 body. And with stacks on stacks, you can 1 head, 2 body, 3 straight players. These sidearms have some serious stopping power with this entire setup, this build. And everything that's been talked about with this base build can work on any solar subclass when you have on thermoclastic blooming. But again, the Greaves one just pops off the most. That's why I just made a dedicated video. And with some of them, maybe you might need a little bit of help to land those melee final blows. Start combining some things that we've gone over, like focusing lens, cryosthesia, land that melee final blow. That way you can secure the thermoclastic orb. Maybe bottom tree gunslinger with assassin's cowl. It's the same end game, stacks on stacks. That way you have 2 kills with high energy fire. Bottom tree sunspots, top dawn, middle tree. All solar trees can get this thing going. But now I do want to get into the ONE BURST BXR. there's a very special perk for it that has big damage, blunt execution rounds. A special perk, a lot of people think that it's niche. This perk is all about finding how to combo it. On its own, it's good, but you can take it further. Damaging nearby combatants with melee abilities dramatically increase handling and damage. It expires after a short duration or the next shot. This perk makes the BXR deal 50 per crit on that next burst, so 150 damage, that's no joke. That allows an easy follow-up burst for the cleanup, so it's a 2 burst. It's actually 5 total bullets. But we have this 50 crit to work with. What can we do on top of that? The issue that gets run into is that for each interaction in Destiny, with very, very, very few outliers, is that there's going to be a buff, a weapon buff, and a debuff. When doubles happen, it takes the highest buff percentage and then applies that. So when you have blunt execution rounds with charge with light, that's 20% more damage. It's still a good burst, it's 60 per crit, 180 damage on the shot. So maybe you do frontal assault with bottom tree striker, that too is 20%. Even with charge with light, it's still gonna deal 60 because it washes out. Maybe inertia override. It does require some setup, but it's the same thing. It takes the top external buff, which is 20%. Maybe Trilumina, also possibly be charged with light. Well, it's kind of like you're in a well, same, 20%. Maybe Foe Tracer. The threshold isn't met for the final burst to inch out past 60 for a bullet hit. Maybe Sunspots, you get it. All of them are 20% and they do not double stack. There's only one other way before I get into the true way to do it, and I'm not really counting it because it's not really too useful. It's cool, and when it happens, it's a GG, it's awesome. Would be from Weapons of Light bubble. But for that to happen, and it's only gonna happen like once a game, someone's gonna have to come up to your bubble, you're gonna have to melee them, then get out of the bubble, and then you can one burst. Blunt execution rounds, Weapon of Light, it has the criteria to one burst. So yeah, if it happens, it's cool, but I'm not really gonna count it because it's gonna be rare. And technically, there's one more scenario. It would be Firewalker, Path of Burning Steps on Titan, but you need to be to ×3, and in that window, find someone to melee, then pull off the one burst. Yeah, not so much. The main way, it's a subclass that's starting to see more play, a subclass that has a lot going for it. Middle Tree Dawnblade, Attunement of Grace. The outlier is the empowered melee, Guiding Flame. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to inflict burn damage and empower yourself and nearby allies. From here, it's a resilience check. And in a moment, there is one more thing on top of this I'm going to add to it. We've talked about the combination of a buff, a weapon buff, a debuff. It takes the highest percentage and it applies it for each category. Now, the empowered melee is one of the rare cases that hasn't been hit. It's still a 25% buff. It's enough to push those blunt execution 50 per crit bullets to 63, so 189 per burst. It will down lower resilience guardians. The blunt execution BXR was made for Middle Tree Well of Radiance. All you need is the BXR with the blunt execution perk and an empowering melee. That's it. Literally the weapon and melee someone. However, the build theme is still warranted. Thermoclastic blooming, dropping those orbs, stacks on stacks, high energy fire. Because empowered, it's going to take the first kill, charge away. After that, it's doing 30 per crit. Now on the tail end of an empowered melee, it's doing 32. So it can 2 burst. It can happen from there. Regardless, it's just going to make follow-up kills a little bit easier. Not to mention, you could do things like pair it with Forerunner. Surprise attack that thing. You can do a ton. Important thing here, if you're a PvP raid boss, light level activities like Trials of Osiris, Iron Banner, this is going to one burst more. It's going to get to 64, 65, 66 per bullet, maybe even higher. And how I always do my pure melee builds. Personally here, I use the slug shotgun, always. It is the perfect primer. It's the same thing I do with my insurmountable build. Any pure melee build, because you can prime the body with a slug, it's never going to actually one-shot them, and you can follow up with the melee. I've been using Chaperone for this, and oh man, I got a lot of messages. Oh, it's so sad that a YouTuber like you is using Chaperone. Tilt my nose up. I'm like, but did I ever even hit you in the head though? It could be Blasphemer, any slug, even a regular shotgun. The 189 it does is a resilience check. It's either going to down them or leave them very, very low. Another important thing, if they have taken literally any damage, any at all, seriously, like even a rapid fire sidearm at 100 meters, because they'll have a damage floor, if that somehow hits them, the 189 will down them from there. There's a lot to like about Middle Tree Well with the BXR blunt execution rounds. The tree allows you to do a lot. I'm running my intellect at 5 or 6. I'm always first super because Well is the fastest super in the game. I'm running high recovery and like 5 or 6, 7 possibly with my discipline and strength. But even if all of that was like at 5, it's going to be okay. There's a fast cooldown on the firebolt. I have double outreach on my class item. I pop rifts near teammates. I throw healing grenades on them. Benevolent Dawn gets going. I get my melee back and I can go do it again. It still has very efficient juggling for your ability cooldowns on Middle Tree. It's been fun. In doing that, you can use any exotic that you want. Could be the steps, Ophidians, Assembler. It all works. But that final touch, and I'm probably going to lose a lot of you with it, and that's okay, you don't have to. But this is what I've been doing. In the sequence of how damage is applied, what's the one thing that we haven't talked about adding in? That's right.
Zone C captured. Double down.
The debuff. All footage from now on is with the Fellwinter's helm. The Fellwinter debuff after the melee spreads out 17 meters. After you land that melee, you're empowered. You have the three: the buff, the weapon buff, and the debuff. And if you choose to use Fellwinter, no matter what, it's just normal play from there, because there's going to be clips in here where you see 81 to the head. They're going to be out of range 63. Just rolling, seeing what happens. If it happens, it does. But when they are close and I see somebody debuffed, I'm going for it. And I know a lot of you are like, I don't know about that. I get that. It's fun though. It's worth a shot. It's a challenge. It's just a little extra thing on top. Without Fellwinters, it is somewhat rare, but it can happen doing the 63 per crit. And again, by itself plainly, Blunt Execution with the Well Lock is great. Keep throwing rifts, healing teammates, secure your melee final blows, and also with that empowering melee. Real quick, no Fellwinter, just by itself, the subclass. In close quarters, you can do a melee, and after you do that, Blunt Execution rounds is going to be on the screen. It does body burst. It's the only subclass that can. I suppose Frontal Assault could as well, but the regular Blunt Execution does 31 to the body, 91 damage. The melee is 100, so it's 191. The empowered melee with the Blunt Execution round body shot burst is 214. There's a lot to like. Now, the debuff from Fellwinter can be used with something like Top Tree Celestial Fire, because Blunt Execution rounds by itself with the debuff, it's going to deal 65 per crit. This has been a fun journey to get here. Getting into all these things, and I shared the main thing with the Perk and Greaves build in the past video, getting into all these things that you can do with thermoclastic blooming, all the interactions, and I hope you enjoyed this little two-part series. Who knows, maybe in a later artifact we might get an arc or a void melee that's going to drop an orb. Make something from there. And also, it's very nice to work with your buffs, weapon buffs, debuffs, and when things come up in the game, it gets you wondering how to build it. I have reviews for the 2 shotguns coming up. I need 1 roll before I can actually commit to getting them out. I'm still grinding. I may have some more builds for you. I have another Warlock one. There's a PvE one as well. We'll see. There's still a lot to cover. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. If you're looking for a new controller, I am partnered with Scuff Gaming. Use the link down below and my code COOL at checkout for a discount. Let's talk about all these builds, and have you pulled off the ONE Burst? Tell us about it. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.